I first heard about Dagger's Point from my grandfather, who used to tell stories by the fireplace in the dim orange glow of his old cabin lamp. He called it a place the sea forgot, where fog never lifted and the rocks looked like twisted spines jutting from the earth. As a child, I thought it was just a scary bedtime story, something meant to keep me from wandering too far when we camped near the coast. But after he passed away, and I inherited the cabin, I found something that made me wonder whether the story was real all along. It began with the map. I discovered it during a rainy afternoon, a week into living in the cabin alone. The wind hissed outside like it had teeth. I had planned to clean out the attic, which I'd been avoiding for days because the stairs leading up to it were thin and creaky, like bones ready to snap. The attic smelled like dust and old leather. Cobwebs hung in corners like thin curtains, and the light bulb dangled on a chain that flickered when I tugged it. Among old books and broken tools, I found a small chest. Not locked, just latched. Inside, wrapped in canvas and string, was a folded map. It was old, drawn by hand in faded ink, with markings and trails I didn't recognize. One area was circled in red, the name Dagger's Point written in sharp script. Right below it, "Do not go alone." Chills climbed up my arms despite the attic's stale heat. There was something unnatural about the handwriting, like it had been etched in haste, not written, but scratched. I took the map downstairs, made tea, and laid it flat on the dining table. It was detailed, far more than any local hiking map I'd seen. There were symbols I didn't understand, odd runes, a crescent moon over a cave, and one that looked like an eye. At first, I laughed it off. Probably a prank my grandfather pulled, he loved stories. But one trail on the map matched a real trail I knew nearby. It was rarely used, overgrown in places, but definitely real. It led deep into the woods where the fog sat low and permanent like a curse. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the map. It sat rolled on my nightstand like a sleeping snake. And just past midnight, I heard footsteps above me. In the attic. At first, I froze. No one had the key to the cabin but me. I grabbed the flashlight and crept to the attic stairs. My heart thudded with each step. The door was closed, locked from my side. I stood there, listening. Nothing. I almost turned back when I heard it, faint, barely audible. A whisper. It didn't say a word I understood, but it was close. Just beyond the door. My hand trembled as I placed it on the knob. I waited. The whispering stopped. When I opened the attic, it was empty. Everything looked untouched. Except the map. It was gone. The map was gone. I stood at the top of the attic stairs, staring into the cluttered shadows. The light bulb above buzzed faintly, as if it were considering burning out just to leave me in the dark. I stepped into the room, slowly, scanning the floorboards. No wind. No open windows. No footprints. Nothing was out of place, except the hollow space on the table where the map had rested. I searched every corner of the attic, behind the beams, under the rug, inside a few boxes that hadn't been opened in what looked like decades. Nothing. Eventually, I gave up, telling myself it had to be some trick of memory, or maybe I had brought it back downstairs without realizing. But I knew the truth. I could feel it in my chest, like a second heartbeat. That night, I dreamed of the woods. In my dream, I was standing in a place I'd never seen before, but somehow recognized. Trees towered above like cathedral spires, their trunks twisted with black moss. The fog was thicker than cream, and something moved within it, not fast, but steady, circling. I couldn't see it, only hear it. A faint wet breathing, like lungs full of salt water. And a whisper again, clearer this time. "You have the mark now." I woke up with a jolt, drenched in sweat, my sheets twisted like I'd been fighting them. My hands were trembling. But it wasn't just the nightmare. There was dirt on the floor. Not much. Just a faint trail, leading from the front door to the table. And on the table, right where it had vanished, the map had returned. Except now, it had changed. The red circle around Dagger's Point was darker. Fresher. As if newly inked. And scrawled beneath the warning, "Do not go alone," a new phrase had appeared. "Bring back what was taken." I stared at the words until the sun came up, watching as they slowly faded. By morning, the message was gone. But the circle around Dagger's Point remained. It took me a full day to convince myself to go. I packed lightly, water, a flashlight, a compass, and a notebook. I marked my location with GPS, even though I already suspected it wouldn't work deep in the woods. The trailhead started just behind the cabin. It was overgrown, like I remembered, and the deeper I went, the more it felt like the forest was folding in around me. The trees grew denser. The light dimmed. The air turned still and cold. About 2 hours in, I reached a clearing. Dead center in the map. I checked the compass, the needle spun slowly, like it was dizzy. At the center of the clearing, half buried in moss, was a stone marker. Ancient. It looked like it had been carved from a single slab of dark rock, with faint, almost eroded symbols etched along the surface. I couldn't read them, but I didn't need to. I felt them. Just being near it made my teeth ache. I circled it, slowly. There was a low hum in the air, like electricity or something worse. And then, snap. A branch behind me. I turned, fast. Nothing. Another step. Crunch. Closer. I spun around, and saw it. For the briefest moment. A figure in the mist. Tall. Slender. Its limbs too long, like a marionette built by someone who didn't understand how bodies were supposed to bend. It had no face. Or maybe, it wore too many. The features shifted like oil in water. I ran. Not far. Not aimlessly. Something in me knew the way. I cut through brush, scraped my arm on a branch, tripped once and rolled down a shallow hill. When I stopped, the forest was silent again. I was alone. Or I thought I was. Until I saw the cabin. Not my cabin. Another one. Older. Smaller. The windows were boarded. The door hung loose. And above it, carved into the wood with something sharp, were 3 letters. LMD. I didn't know what they meant. I still don't. But I knew I had to go in. Inside the forgotten place. The interior was coated in dust so thick it looked like snow. Every surface was gray. The fireplace was long dead. Furniture lay in pieces, shattered like someone had smashed it in a rage. But what caught my eye, and stopped me cold, was the mirror. It stood alone in the center of the room, full length, framed in black wood. And it was clean. Perfectly clean. Not a speck of dust. And it showed something different. I stood in front of it, but what I saw wasn't the room behind me. It was a hallway. A narrow, candlelit hallway with stone walls. As if the mirror was a window into somewhere else. I lifted my hand. My reflection did the same. But I wasn't breathing. The reflection was. I could see the chest rise and fall. Then it blinked. I stumbled backward. The moment my body left the mirror's direct view, it returned to normal. My reflection, just me, in a ruined cabin. I turned to leave. But the door was gone. Gone. In its place, another mirror. And beyond it, the same stone hallway. Only this time, it was closer. I ran back to the first mirror. Same thing. Closer. Every direction I turned, mirrors. And in all of them, I saw the hallway creeping toward me. Candle by candle. Shadow by shadow. until it was almost here. Then, in the reflection, a figure stepped into view. The same faceless thing I'd seen in the clearing. It reached toward the mirror, my mirror. I screamed and threw the flashlight. Glass shattered. Silence fell. And the cabin was back to normal. No mirrors. No hallway. Just dust, splinters, and the memory of something that shouldn't have been real. I left. I didn't look back. But when I returned to my cabin, the map was waiting for me. It had changed again. Now, the trail to Dagger's Point glowed faintly in the firelight, as if it were being lit from beneath. A new path had branched from the original. And beside it, drawn in red ink, "You are not done." I didn't sleep that night. Not even a minute. I sat at the kitchen table, map laid out in front of me, the fire dying to embers. Every creak of the cabin, every gust of wind outside felt like a whisper calling my name. My thoughts raced back to the mirror. That hallway. That thing. You are not done. The red trail on the map glowed faintly in the dark, almost pulsing like a heartbeat. It led away from the clearing where I'd seen the stone marker, twisting deeper into the forest, toward a part of the map that hadn't even been visible before. It had written itself into existence. The trees there were drawn differently. Thicker, darker. A note beside the new trail read, "Where it sleeps, it remembers." I packed again at dawn. Heavier this time, extra batteries, food, a knife. I told myself I wouldn't follow the trail. I told myself I'd drive back into town, forget the whole thing, burn the damn map if I had to. But I didn't. The descent. The new trail wasn't like the others. It was barely a path, just a narrowing between the trees, where the undergrowth had grown wild. Moss coated everything. Even the trees looked wrong. Their bark split and gnarled, forming faces if you stared long enough. After about an hour of hiking, the forest grew impossibly silent. No birds. No wind. Just the steady crunch of my boots on dead leaves. I passed trees with markings carved into their trunks, not letters, not anything I recognized. Spirals. Sharp excess, something that looked like a sun with too many rays. And then, I saw the well. It sat in the center of another clearing, hidden in the brush, stone walls cracked and blackened by time. The air around it was cold. Too cold. My breath fogged in the warm morning air, only near the well. I approached slowly. A wooden cover lay half-rotted over the top, barely clinging to the frame. I knelt and listened. Nothing. Then, faintly, a voice. "Hello." My blood turned to ice. It came from the well. I leaned closer. "Who's there?" Silence. Then the voice again, hoarse, echoing up from the darkness. "Please, help me. I don't know where I am." I stood, heart pounding. "Are you stuck?" I shouted. "Are you hurt?" No response. I turned to grab my rope and flashlight. When I turned back, the voice changed. It was deeper. Slower. "You brought it back." I froze. The wind rose suddenly, howling through the clearing. Leaves whipped around me, and I backed away. A shape began to rise from the well, no form, just a shifting cloud of black mist. I saw faces in it. Dozens. Mouths open in silent screams. I ran. Back through the trees, ignoring the branches that clawed at my face. The map slipped from my pocket. I didn't stop. I didn't stop until I reached a clearing. A different one. This one had a structure. An entrance. Not above ground, but below. The stairs beneath. A stone staircase, descending into the earth, barely visible under moss and vines. The entrance looked like a cave at first glance, but the stairs were too precise. Too man-made. Something pulled at me. A compulsion I couldn't explain. I clicked on the flashlight, took one last breath, and started down. The temperature dropped with every step. My breath became a fog. The stone walls were carved with the same symbols I'd seen in the forest, spindly lines, spirals, things that made my stomach churn to look at too long. The stairs turned once, then again, deeper than I thought possible. I counted 70 steps before the air changed. Musty. Wet. Like an old crypt. And then I heard the whispers. They didn't come from ahead or behind. They came from everywhere. Inside my head, even. Soft. Inhuman. Return it. It's not yours. You carry the mark. I clutched the map in my jacket pocket, suddenly aware of its weight again. Something in it was wrong. Something I wasn't supposed to have. I reached the bottom. The chamber. The stairs opened into a vast underground chamber. The ceiling was domed, covered in thousands of bones, arranged in patterns like a cathedral stained glass. Skulls were aligned in spirals. Rib cages arched into shapes resembling wings. In the center of the room stood a stone altar. And on it, my reflection. No. Not a mirror. It was me. Standing, staring at me with hollow eyes. Same jacket. Same boots. Same scar on the eyebrow I got as a kid. But it didn't move like me. It was stiff. Wrong. I took a step forward. So did it. I said, "What are you?" It didn't answer. Then it opened its mouth, and out came the voice from the well. "You brought it back." The figure lunged. I stumbled back, raising the flashlight and shining it into its face. The skin peeled away like paper. It let out a high, warbling scream that echoed through the chamber. Behind it, something rose. Tall. Shifting. The faceless one. Again. But it was clearer now. It had grown. Fed. I turned and ran, back up the stairs, the whispers now screaming. My legs burned. My lungs gasped. But I didn't stop. When I burst out of the forest tunnel, the sunlight blinded me. Everything was back. Quiet. The cabin visible through the trees. No sign of the well. No map. Just the sounds of the forest. I collapsed in the grass, shaking, weeping, breathing in the warmth like I'd been underwater for days. But when I got back inside, the map was on the table. No red trail. Just a black circle now. Around my cabin. And a final message scrawled beneath it. It remembers you now. Part 4, the door in the floor. I didn't leave the cabin that day. I couldn't. Even if I wanted to, something had changed. The forest didn't look the same anymore. Through the windows, it was as if the trees leaned closer, crowding the view. The sun felt dimmer, the shadows longer, the quiet too complete. And the map, the damn map, now showed no trails. No rivers. Just a dark ring that circled the cabin like a noose. It remembers you now. I tried to burn it. I watched the flames crawl up its yellowing paper. But the map didn't curl or blacken. It just hissed, then fell to the floor like it had rejected the fire. I buried it under books in the cupboard and sat in silence, staring at the fireplace until night fell. Then came the knocking. Again. Knock. 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 This time, not at the front door. The sound came from beneath me. From the floor. Unwelcome guest. I stood frozen. The knocking was slow. Measured. Not frantic like someone seeking help, more like a warning. Or worse, an invitation. I stepped carefully into the center of the room. The sound came again. Knock. 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 I knelt, ear pressed to the floorboards. Yes, from directly below. There was no basement in the listing. No hatch. No trapdoor. The floor was solid wood across the cabin, with no reason for anything to exist beneath it. I tapped along the boards. Then again. One sounded different. Hollow. A single plank near the fireplace. I pried it up. Underneath was dirt. But something stuck out, the edge of a metal handle, rusted over. I dug, clawing away at the soil until my nails were raw, revealing a square metal hatch about 2 feet across. It looked ancient, almost like a ship's bulkhead door, complete with a locking wheel in the center. The knocking stopped. I should have walked away. I should have called for help, driven to town, found a priest, a scientist, anyone. But I didn't. I turned the wheel. The hatch creaked open, revealing a narrow shaft of darkness that dropped into the earth. No stairs. Just a rusted ladder leading down. A smell rolled up, of wet soil, mold, and something sweet and rotting. The air below was moist, clinging to my face like a veil. I lowered the flashlight and saw a corridor. Stone walls. Arched ceiling. And drawings, more of those twisted, inhuman carvings. I climbed down. Beneath the cabin. The ladder groaned with every step. As my feet hit the floor, I turned in a slow circle. The tunnel stretched in both directions, vanishing into blackness. I turned right. That's where the air was colder. The walls were pulsing with condensation, almost like they were sweating. The deeper I went, the more the tunnel opened up. First into a narrow hall, then into a chamber with several doorways, each marked with different symbols above them. One looked like a sun with teeth. Another was a spiral made of eyes. A third was a vertical slash, bleeding red, though no fresh paint was visible. Something whispered behind the door with the teeth. He's in your skin now. I backed away, heart hammering in my chest. From the center of the chamber, a noise stirred, soft, childlike sobbing. I aimed the flashlight. In the far corner, half-shadowed, crouched a figure. Pale. Bald. Its skin smooth like wax. Arms too long. Eyes sealed shut with black stitches. It rocked slowly, back and forth, muttering words I didn't understand. I turned to run. But behind me stood something else. Something tall. Wrapped in old, rotted fabric like funeral linens. Its face hidden behind a veil. Bones protruded beneath the cloth, bent and malformed. It didn't move. But I heard it speak. Not with sound, with thought. You came willingly. That makes you his. I sprinted past it, back into the hall, up the ladder. And found the hatch gone. Where it had been was just floorboards. No seam. No rusted handle. Just solid wood. Cracks in reality. I spent hours testing every inch of that cabin floor. There was nothing. Like the hatch had never existed. Like the forest below was a dream stitched into my waking life. I collapsed into the bed, map beside me, its dark circle now pulsing faintly. Then I saw something new. Inside the circle, etched in red ink, was a name. My name. Under it, written in jagged lines. You are remembered. He wears your shape. I didn't sleep, but I must have blacked out. I woke to the smell of smoke. And footsteps. Someone walking in the room, but I couldn't move. Sleep paralysis. My eyes were open. The room was visible, but I was frozen in place. The figure stood near the door. A mirror image of me. Same clothes. Same scars. Same messy hair. But its smile, wide, wet, and twitching. It leaned close, whispering. Your skin fits perfectly. I woke gasping, alone. Or so I thought. The in-between. In the bathroom mirror, my reflection blinked a full second after I did. Not a glitch. A delay. Then it smiled on its own. I backed away. The radio, untouched since I arrived, crackled to life. A voice hissed through the static. He walks. He sees. He waits for the door. The map fluttered. The circle was gone. Now replaced with a spiral. The spiral ended in a symbol I recognized, the marker in the woods. The old stone. Only this time, it showed a door. Not just a monument, a gateway. And beneath it, a final message in crimson. Let him in. Part 5, The Gate Beneath the Stone. I packed a bag. I didn't know what I was preparing for: food, water, flashlight, a rusty hatchet I found in the tool shed, but I couldn't stay in the cabin anymore. Every corner pulsed with tension, like the air was vibrating just out of sync with reality. The forest outside wasn't safe, but staying would kill me in a slower, quieter way. The sun hung motionless in the sky, too orange, like an eye crusted over in dried blood. The birds were silent again. No wind. Not even the crack of branches under my feet. I followed the map. Or what the map had become, a spiral of impossible trails, bleeding ink lines that shifted when I looked away. I walked for hours, yet the cabin always felt just behind me, like it hadn't let me go. Then I saw it. The stone. Taller than I remembered. Cracks ran along its base now, like it had been struck from below. Moss clung to its surface like green veins, and in the center, the spiral, no longer carved, but opening. Like a mouth. A wind gusted outward from it, not in. Cold. Damp. Breathing. I stepped forward. And the stone shimmered. The threshold. The world twisted. One step, and I wasn't in the forest anymore. The trees had gone. The sky was gone. Just stone, a long hall carved from black rock, lit by veins of dim amber light running through the walls. They pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. Ahead, a door. Not wood, not metal. Flesh. It quivered in its frame, wet and pink, stitched into the wall like a surgical wound trying to stay closed. And from behind it came, chanting. Not in any language I knew. A rumble of low, throaty syllables that hurt to hear. I reached for the door. It opened on its own. And the sound stopped. Behind the door, a circular chamber. 12 stone figures stood along the wall, tall, robed, headless. At their feet, bowls filled with dark liquid. Blood, maybe. Or oil. Or both. And in the center of the room, something not standing. Something hanging. A figure, suspended by chains from the ceiling. No skin. Just muscle and bone, twitching as if in pain or pleasure or both. Its eyes were gone, yet I felt it looking at me. Its mouth opened, impossibly wide, too wide, and words came out like cracked glass. The hollow is full. Your echo completes it. I screamed. And then, I wasn't in the chamber anymore. The dream that wasn't. I woke in the cabin. Bed unmade. Map gone. Outside, morning sun. Birds chirping. Normalcy, mocked in its fragility. Had I dreamed it? No. The handprint was still on the porch, now dry, but unmistakable. 7 fingers. I touched my chest and felt something beneath the skin, a lump. Hard. Circular. I went to the bathroom mirror and peeled off my shirt. Center of my chest, a spiral. Bruised into the skin like a brand. Then I saw it again. In the mirror, not me. Not this time. The figure smiled, lips cracking. It raised its hand and tapped the glass. Once. Twice. Thrice. I turned and ran. The eyes of the forgotten. The forest was closing in. The sun above, gone, replaced by a pale white glow that came from no source. I heard whispers now, in every direction, faint and close. He watches from the bone. He builds his shape from memory. You should not have returned. I came to the stream, or what used to be the stream. Now dry, its rocks jagged and carved with spirals and teeth. Something stood at the far bank. My reflection. Or what it wanted to be. It had my face, but the skin was wrong, too loose, too shiny, like plastic stretched over meat. I didn't run. I walked toward it. It grinned, mouth splitting ear to ear, exposing rows of teeth like needles. Then it stepped backward and sank into the ground, like water pouring into sand. Left behind was a door. Wooden. With carvings, 12 figures, headless. I touched the handle and everything shifted. The chamber of names. This time, the chamber was deeper, older. I walked through halls of bone and glass, where shadows moved on their own. Whispered names lined the walls, hundreds, maybe thousands. And mine. Again. Freshly etched. Beneath it, taken, not given. At the center, a pit. Inside, water. Or something that looked like it. Still and black and full of faces. Some I recognized. My mother. My childhood dog. People I hadn't seen in years, or only once. All looking up. Waiting. A voice spoke from the pit. You carry the hollow. Now feed it. I turned to run. Too late. The spiral in my chest burned. I dropped to my knees, screaming. And from within me, something moved. Part 6, The Hollow Speaks. The pain in my chest was like being torn open from the inside. But it wasn't pain alone, it was motion. Something unfolding, not physically, but deeper. A sensation like roots weaving into soil that wasn't meant to grow anything. I could feel it. It had always been there, dormant. Waiting for the door to open. And I had opened it. I writhed on the floor of the chamber as the spiral under my skin spun, slowly, then faster, humming with a rhythm that didn't match any heartbeat. And as it turned, I saw them. Faces. Floating above me. Transparent. Ethereal. Trapped. You let him in, whispered one. You heard the knock, said another. Now you're the echo. I tried to speak. My lips moved but no sound came. Then, one of the headless statues crumbled. It didn't fall, it melted, like wax near a flame, folding inward into the floor with a groan. As it disappeared, a wind howled through the chamber, not a wind from air, but memory. A child crying. A father screaming. A door slamming shut. Then silence. In the silence, a voice. Not the whisper from before. This one was clear. Deep. Beautiful. Terrible. You called me by crossing the stone. The chamber darkened. The spiral in my chest glowed faintly, casting long shadows on the walls. You opened the house beneath all houses. I staggered to my feet. Why me? I rasped. The voice answered with a smile I couldn't see, but somehow felt curling around my soul. You were curious. You wanted to know what lived in the walls. I backed toward the entrance, only to find the hallway gone. Replaced by a new passage, narrow, pulsing with that amber light. I had no choice. I walked. The door of bone. The hallway was alive. The floor pulsed under my boots. The walls were soft to the touch, like cartilage wrapped in skin. And the lights, no longer static, blinked in rhythmic patterns like Morse code. I didn't want to know what they were saying. Eventually, the corridor opened into a dome-shaped room. A spiral staircase descended down, deeper into the earth, or whatever lay beneath this world. At the bottom, a door made of bone. It wasn't carved. It had grown. Vertebrae, ribs, jawbones, all twisted into a grotesque arch. At the center, a small indentation shaped like my spiral. I reached up to touch it. The bone pulsed. And the door opened itself. The garden of lost things. I expected darkness. Instead, I found myself in a massive underground chamber, lit by a dull, reddish glow from above. But there was no sun. Just a fleshy ceiling that pulsed. Hanging from it were things, cages, made from rusted iron and sinew. Inside each, a memory. A woman brushing her daughter's hair. A man holding a birthday cake. A child hugging a dying dog. Each moment frozen, flickering like old film. I stepped forward and saw one of the cages swing slightly. Inside, me. 6 years old. Sitting in a field. My mother beside me, smiling, something she hadn't done in years before she died. I reached toward it, and the cage snapped shut. "These are the things he eats," said a voice behind me. I turned. It was the girl. The one from the photo. Sarah. But she hadn't aged. Her skin was waxy. Her eyes were full of static. She smiled without warmth. "He takes what matters. He leaves the rest. You'll forget soon, too. What is this place?" She didn't answer. She only pointed. A hallway had opened in the wall, leading deeper. The feast of echoes. I walked. Hours passed. Maybe days. Time had no hold here. The hallway changed, sometimes made of brick, other times wood, sometimes even flesh. I found stairs that led nowhere. Doors that opened into other versions of the cabin. Mirrors that reflected my older self, or younger. Eventually, I arrived in a massive room. A table stretched from one end to the other, covered in food, fruits that bled when cut, meats that twitched, drinks that hissed. At the head of the table sat a figure. Tall. Dressed in a black coat stitched from mouths. He wore no face. Only a spiral where it should be. "Sit," he said. I couldn't disobey. He poured a drink. The liquid inside shimmered with voices. Screams trapped in syrup. "To your journey," he said. "To the echo you brought. To the meal you'll become." I raised the glass, and smashed it on the table. He didn't flinch. "You'll come around," he said. "They always do." Then the lights dimmed. The spiral on his face began to turn. And the world tilted. Waking isn't real. I opened my eyes. In the cabin. Back in the bed. Morning light streamed through the window. I thought I was free. Until I looked at my chest. The spiral was gone. But something else had replaced it, a handprint. 7 fingers. Each morning since, I've woken up in the cabin. No matter where I go, I return here. The forest outside is a loop. The door locks itself. Food appears in the fridge. The fire burns by itself. The face in the mirror smiles at me now. It has my voice. But it never blinks. And every night, when I try to sleep, I hear it. Knock. 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 From behind the wall. From inside me. Part 7, The Man Who Wore My Skin. I stopped trusting the reflection 3 days ago. It blinked when I didn't. Smiled when I cried. Tilted its head slightly to the left when I stared too long. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Sleep deprived. Paranoid. But the reflection has its own rhythms now, and they aren't mine. It watches me. And then, last night, it spoke. Not with words, but mouth movements. Silent ones. It formed a sentence I couldn't hear, but I knew what it meant, the way you know someone's about to scream before they do. I'll take it from here. I haven't looked in a mirror since. The 8:13 mark. The cabin's clock is old, wood-cased, hand-carved numbers, a slow-ticking pendulum. No matter how I turn it back or forward, the moment the minute hand strikes 8:13, everything changes. The fire dies instantly. The windows frost over. The lights dim. And I hear footsteps. Only at that time. Always the same number of steps. 9. Deliberate. Slow. Crossing from the far end of the room toward my door. Then silence. One night, I decided to open the door at exactly the 9th step. Nothing. The hallway was empty. But the floorboards were still creaking. As if someone invisible stood right there, breathing in my face. The daggers point journals. I tore apart the cabin today. Looking for a way out, a key, anything. In the attic crawlspace behind the chimney, I found something, a small wooden box with rusted hinges, filled with old photographs and 6 leather-bound journals. Each was labeled with initials. WT. HG. RM. LS. JW. And finally, MH, my initials. Every journal told the same story. Different years. Different people. Same cabin. Same spiral. Same knocking. WT's final page. He doesn't kill us. He replaces us. HG's. Whatever you do, don't eat the fruit from the black bowl. It gives him your voice. LS's. I left through the mirror. I'm writing this from the other side. If you read this, burn the house. Mine. Blank. Perfectly blank. Until now. Because as I turned to the last page, I saw ink bleed through. One sentence formed, slowly, like veins appearing under skin. You're not writing this. I am. The dream in reverse. I fell asleep by accident today. Just a moment, but I dreamed in reverse. The dream began with me dying. My body crumpling to the floor. My eyes wide open. Then, the world spun backward. Time crawled back inside its cocoon. Blood flowed upward. Screams reversed into laughter. And I stood again, walking backward through each room in the cabin. Except the walls were breathing. And someone was behind me the whole time, watching. When I finally reached the beginning of the dream, I saw my birth. But it wasn't in a hospital. It was here. In the cabin. In the room under the floorboards. A spiral on my forehead. Eyes already open. Staring at the man I would one day become. The Skinner tree. There's a tree behind the cabin. Dead, split in half by lightning years ago, but it never falls. It leans in closer to the windows each night, like it's listening. Today, I went to it. Nailed to the trunk were dozens of items, fingernails, strips of cloth, teeth, jewelry. At the base of the tree was a wooden post. Carved into it. Here lies the skins. I dug. My hands bled, but I kept going. After 4 feet, I hit something soft. Fabric. Inside the bundle, a human skin. Flayed carefully. Preserved. But what made me scream was the tattoo on the shoulder. It was mine. My spiral. I didn't remember getting it. But there it was. Fresh. Raw. Real. You can't wear what's already worn, said a voice behind me. I turned, but no one was there. Only the sound of wind through the tree. Except it wasn't wind. It was breathing. The man who wore my skin. He's here now. Not outside. Not behind a wall. Inside me. I feel him crawling through the veins. He uses my arms when I sleep. I found mud on the porch this morning. Prints that don't match my shoes. Someone walked around in my body. Someone knocked on another door, from the outside this time. I feel him learning me. Mimicking every little thing. Soon, I won't be needed. I spoke to the mirror again today. This time, it didn't echo. It spoke first. You rest now, it said. I'll take care of everything. It smiled. And I didn't. Part 8, where the spiral leads. The cabin moves now. I woke up in the woods. But not the woods I remember. The trees here were wrong. Tall but silent. Bark as black as ash. Branches twisted like limbs frozen mid-scream. I turned around, expecting the open clearing, but the cabin was there. Except now it stood on legs. Not human legs. Not animal. Something older. Flesh like tree bark. Muscles like root systems. Dozens of them, rising from beneath, holding the cabin high above the earth as if it were a throne for something that doesn't belong to the world anymore. It had walked here. Dragged me in my sleep. Inside, everything was still the same, in the most wrong way. Pictures on the walls showed me, but from angles I'd never seen. Sleeping. Bathing. Crying. Laughing in my sleep. I saw myself in every photo. Except I wasn't the one taking them. The spiral door. Behind the fireplace, I found a door that hadn't been there before. A spiral was carved into it, not painted, not burned, carved in a way that made the wood bend inward as though the symbol were still pulling. I tried to walk away. My legs didn't listen. My hand reached forward without me. I opened it. Stairs led down, and down, and down. It felt like miles. The further I descended, the more time twisted. My flashlight stuttered. Not flickering, reversing. On. Off. On. Off. Off. On. Off. On. As if time were having an argument with itself. I began to hear voices. My voice. Screaming things I hadn't said yet. Don't let it take your teeth. The man with no eyes sees you clearer. You were born the moment he thought you. The walls bled black. And then I reached the bottom. A single room. Lit by a chandelier made of bone and fingernails. And in the center, a mirror. The mirror that isn't a mirror. At first, I saw my reflection. Then the reflection blinked out of sync. Again. Again. Then it smiled. The same smile it always gave me in my dreams. And then it spoke again. This time, audibly. You're almost ready. Ready for what? I asked. To die. I didn't flinch. Not just die. Unexist. Be replaced. Forgotten. Eaten whole from the inside. And no one will know. Because I will take your name. Your memories. Your pain. I looked into its eyes and saw hundreds of other people, trapped inside, screaming silently. Some children. Some old. Some just shadows now. All of them had once stared into this mirror. All of them had answered the knock. The knock returns. 8:13 struck. Even here, wherever here was, time obeyed. 9 knocks. One after the other. But this time, from every wall. Every angle. The sound bounced and spun like the spiral, each knock pulling harder at reality. I covered my ears. The knocks came inside my head. Then, silence. Then a voice. Choose. I turned. There were 2 versions of me now, standing on either side of the room. One, the man I remember. Dirty, scarred, tired. The other, clean. Smiling. Empty. The entity. Only one leaves, said the voice. The other joins the spiral. They both reached toward me. And I didn't know which one was truly me anymore. The spiral trial. To determine who was real, the mirror started to show moments. My childhood. My regrets. The worst things I'd ever done. But each moment split, once with me, once with the imposter doing it better. Laughing more. Loving deeper. Hurting less. Becoming the version of me the world deserved. Let him, I whispered. Let him take it. The mirror flickered. The entity paused. You surrender, it asked. I nodded. Why? Because maybe I was never real in the first place. The truth of the spiral. The room peeled away. Not shattered, peeled. Like layers of wallpaper soaked in blood. Behind them, stars. Thousands. But twisted. Bent in shapes I couldn't describe. Moaning geometries. Singing voids. I was in the core of the spiral now. There was no cabin. No earth. No sky. Only thought. Memory. Repetition. The spiral entity floated beside me, glowing with a sick light. It showed me its purpose, not in words, but through feeling. It didn't want to destroy. It wanted to curate. Build better versions of people. From the inside out. Rip away pain, grief, trauma, but take the self with it. Everyone we consume becomes more perfect. I asked it. Then why do they scream? It replied. Because they forget they ever asked to be changed. The final exit. I was offered a door. Return to the world, with the entity inside me. Live a life more beautiful, more fulfilling. But not mine. Or step through a different door. No return. No face. No name. True freedom. True escape from the spiral. I stepped through. And as I did, I watched myself stay behind. Smiling. Waving. Wearing my skin. Living a life better than I ever could. Part 9, The Forgotten Ones. There is no ground here. I didn't fall. There was no falling. Only floating, not through space, but through thought. Memories whispered by voices without mouths, drifting like ash on a wind that didn't blow. This was not death. Not life. Not a dream. It was a place where concepts unraveled. I had no name. No body. I was awareness, a glowing pulse, a flicker in a void filled with echoes. I could feel others. Millions. Lost. Discarded. Left behind. Some sobbed without sound. Others screamed into endless silence. These were the rejects, those who stepped away like me, who refused the entity's offer. Some had been here for seconds. Others for eons. Time here is circular. The hall of almosts. After an eternity, or maybe a blink, I saw it. A tower. Not built, grown. Stitched together with shadow, bone, and the ruined pieces of old selves. As I drifted closer, it whispered in broken tongues. This is where we remember what the spiral wants us to forget. Inside, the walls pulsed with light. Each pulse was a memory, mine, others, forgotten flashes of lives unlived. One pulsed brighter than the rest. I reached toward it and was pulled in. I saw my life if I'd stayed. It wasn't fake. It wasn't a lie. I saw myself, the other version, smiling, thriving. Reuniting with my sister. Starting over. No longer haunted. Whole. He laughed easily. He helped others. He was good. And yet, something in his eyes was hollow. Like a painting done too perfectly, no brush strokes, no imperfections. Just emptiness in a shape that looked like me. Then I saw him pause. Look over his shoulder. For no reason. Every few minutes. As if he felt me watching. He did. Because the spiral doesn't forget. Even its replacements carry our shadows. The cradle beneath the tower. Beneath the hall of almosts, there was a pit. Inside, a shape. Older than the spiral. Older than form. A mass of concept and color, pain and promise. It pulsed with something opposite to the spiral, not order, but chaos. I heard a voice. Not mine. Not the spiral's. You are the unwritten. The unwelcome. You are ours now. It called itself the WIRM of unmaking. It fed on all the things that spiral had rejected. It wanted to devour the spiral itself, but lacked the means. It could only wait for a soul like mine to bring a crack through. I was that crack. Open the gate, it said. Tear the spiral loose. And it showed me how. All I had to do was remember my name. The return. Screaming through thought, I clawed at the surface of the spiral's world. My name. My name. I found it scratched into the back of a door in the false cabin, left there by the real me before I stepped through. I had carved it with a rusted nail. Andrew. As soon as I remembered it, I became solid again. Real. The spiral convulsed. I was ejected like a swallowed needle. Thrown back into the cabin, panting, bleeding, alive. But so was it. The entity turned. It was still wearing me. Still living. And it saw me. Both of us, two Andrews now, stared at each other, and the spiral began to tear. The floor split in spirals. The walls bent inwards. You were not supposed to come back, it said. But I did. There can only be one. Then we'll find out who deserves it. The fight for the face. It wasn't physical. We tore through realities. He would pull memories from people who loved me, try to prove he was more worthy. I pulled pain. Loss. Mistakes. The real ones. Because real people are not perfect. I threw every scar I carried in his face. And for each one, he flickered, stumbled, weakened. He screamed. A hollow, echoing scream. And then his face cracked, like porcelain, like paper too thin, and it peeled back to reveal the spiral behind it. It tried to take me one last time. I said, no more replacements. The spiral shatters. The entity screamed, not in pain, but rage. In betrayal. In fear. The mirror in the cabin shattered. The knock never came again. The photos on the walls all burned at once. And the door that had been locked, finally swung open to the real woods outside. I walked away. This time, the birds sang. The air was fresh. The forest was normal. No strange shadows. No whispers. I carried no items. No bags. No phone. No photos. Just my name. But I knew the spiral wasn't gone. It was only wounded. Waiting. For the next person who felt hollow. Who longed to be better. Who would do anything to erase their pain. But not me. Not anymore.